When it's cloudy or dark and you can't see much, reach out with your hearing, your smell, and your touch. If you're feeling fenced in by what you can't see, break down those fences and come to your senses with me. When you can't see exactly what to do, close your eyes and try to use your ears. Listen close and hear what's in front of you, and maybe the way out will at last appear.
I found a hidden door.
When it's cloudy or dark and you can't see much, reach out with your hearing, your smell, and your touch. If you're feeling fenced in by what you can't see, break down those fences and come to your senses with me.
Bienvenida and welcome to a very special episode of Spirit of Avalor with Lauren.
And Becca.
And today we are not doing anything from Avalor. We're making a pit stop in Enchantia to speak with the awesome person who created, and I'm even going to say this, but it's a good thing, the first blind princessa. So, welcome, Matt.
Well, hello. I'm so happy to be here.
And we are happy to have you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm so touched. You guys reached out to me via Twitter, which I'm barely on after the episode aired, and it just really meant the world to me that the episode that I wrote about a princess who happens to be blind touched you guys and meant something to you. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Oh yeah, I know, she really, really did, and it just, like, for the first time, you got it right. And
yeah.
I don't want to say it was surprising because that would sound really bad, but in a way, we were very pleasantly surprised that you did, that it was portrayed, she was portrayed the right way. Sorry. I want your baby there.
Well, you know. Well, I love to hear all the ways in which I'm right. So tell me more about that. So no, but seriously, tell me about, if you don't mind, tell me about times you have felt that, what are the kind of mistakes that writers make when portraying someone with a disability, like blindness or visual impairment of some kind, and the way in which you thought I did it so masterfully.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, the way that so Cassandra uses her cane correctly. That was not what I was trying to make that clarify that before I went into anything else. So anything when I said she, I meant. So, can we pull back the curtain and go way back to when I was very little for a second?
Yes, please.
And we're gonna mention something that obviously a lot of parents hated. They wanted to strangle the thing and all that stuff. And I think you know what I'm about to say. So when I was very little, and I was home from school sick one of the many times that I was. I mean, it was just, like I said, with everything I'd been through medically and stuff, there were just some things that would happen sometimes after the surgeries and stuff. No, sorry, Becca.
This is with your glaucoma.
Yeah.
With your glaucoma.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry. So I was home and I wanted to watch Disney, but what I had wanted to watch at the time wasn't on. So I was forced to wait. So my mother, in her brilliance, put on Barney and Friends, and I was like, really? I'm 7, 8 years old. I do not like this. I'm glad I can't see for a couple days because that would,
That's funny.
And so,
that's funny.
Oh, it was. So there's a point. I'm sorry. I promise. So what happened was, it happened to me in an episode where they meet someone who's blind. Now, this is where we get kind of messed up here. Now, I looked this up before I said anything because I didn't want to get it wrong, and the person who played this blind character was not blind herself.
Okay.
And I understand what you said off air when we were talking for a couple minutes, so that's not what I mean. What I'm talking about is this. Yeah. For this particular instance, they could have gotten someone, because this was not a kid. This was someone who was in her teens, so they could have gotten somebody. And the other thing is that they wouldn't let her put down her cane even when she was sitting and they were just singing or doing something, or Lucy, that's her friend, was helping. I was like, you can't put down your cane, you're not going to explode if you don't have it in your hand. And I actually said that at 7 or 8. I was like, really? Come on. And it was just a bunch of other
interesting.
things. It just was little things that I just didn't think, you know, like they kept having, they were afraid to use the word watch. One of them was, not all the kids, one of the kids was afraid to do that. It just was really, like, really ridiculous. I was like, no, you can say that.
Yeah.
So you feel like sometimes people treat the person with the disability too preciously. They're too, they're kind of babying them or something, or okay. And then with the cane, you felt like there was somebody using it kind of as a prop, and they whereas in what you liked about Princess Cassandra was she used it sometimes, and other times she put it away.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, we were really trying to go with that adventure, kind of make her as cool as possible. And so one of the things is that her cane is actually extendable. So it's like it sort of folds up into this little wand size, and then goes and comes out. And we thought that was a neat device.
That's so cool.
Ours do the same thing, and that's what got that when Becca said that, because like I said, I have next to no vision. Becca has more than I do, but she she was explaining that to me, and I was like, oh, okay, that is awesome.
Yeah, and I loved how it looked exactly like our canes too. Like
that's
that.
Well, trust me that the artists and the director did a lot of research into that, into figuring out how to make it authentic. Awesome. Well, what else? Well, go ahead. Do you have questions or?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Actually, I'm going to go first. Can we start at the beginning when we're talking about a young Matt here? I mean, as much as you want to share, obviously, it's okay.
Yes.
So what was that like growing up? I mean, were you a cartoon kid? Were you a drawer? Were you an adventure type kid? Were you like Andy from Toy Story, always playing with your toys? What was it like?
Well, I was very... I'm currently writing for a show called Fancy Nancy, which is about a girl who has an incredible imagination when she's younger, and the other writers on this staff call me Fancy Mancy because I was very similar to Fancy Nancy in a way. I mean, I wasn't into fashion and stuff, but I was really into drawing and acting, and I started doing an acting class when I was in third grade. I wrote a full-length musical in third grade. I had this amazing teacher who helped with that, named Mr. Dion. I would get really into Halloween. Like I would just spend months like building my costume, and I get really upset. My parents always tell the story that I was an astronaut one year, and I made this helmet out of tin foil in a box, and like a jet pack and a ray gun that lit up, and then but I was really upset because my mom had sewed me a like a space outfit, but there wasn't elastic on the sleeves. And I was really young, and I was like, the oxygen will get out. The oxygen will get out. So,
that's awesome.
So I really was definitely living in my imagination. Now, then I got into high school, and being a nerd who was really into creativity wasn't so cool. And so I started playing football and running on the track team, and I stopped acting and like did all that kind of stuff. And I felt really, I would say, kind of dead inside, And then luckily in college, I came back to that creativity, and it's interesting because I was an actor then for a long time, and then I slowly found my way back towards writing, and then I just kind of fell into doing cartoons, and I worked really hard on my acting and my writing, and I really tried to do really important, worthy kinds of projects. And meanwhile, the thing that I loved when I felt down was going and reading comic books. Like I would go to no matter, like if I had a bad audition, I would go into a comic book store and I would feel better, And similarly, growing up, my dad had these funny. I took so many acting classes in my life, but the thing that kind of influenced me most was my dad had these records, these comedy records growing up, and some of them they were like impersonators doing impressionists doing voices, and I just loved those voices. So on a whim, one day I got a phone call as an actor saying, hey, a friend of mine was saying, like, oh, this is a small thing. They're doing voiceovers for some cartoon. And I went in and I was really good at it. And I wound up booking the lead in a series called Captain Harlock, which was like a space pirate thing. And then that led to doing, those are the same people who did Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Viva Pinata and Shaman King. And I just did all of the Dinosaur King, like all these different shows. And, you know, unlike Becca, who could still play a child, I have this kind of deep voice. So I was always playing the kind of raspy villains, you know, and I was always some cool guy who would come in to kick butt.
When you did that, sorry to interrupt, I'm sorry. When you did that, I got an image of Casey Jones in my head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, who I played, right? And, well, no, okay. I played a guy named Corey D'Amato on Pokemon. So, and then I ran into a friend of mine. I was writing plays. Then I was writing plays, and I had a couple plays optioned for Broadway. They didn't quite make it to Broadway, but we did these big readings with all these famous stars in them. Oh. And I was walking down the street one day, and a friend of mine, who was the husband of somebody I went to school with, I ran into him, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I got to do these plays. And he said, "You should write for Arthur." And he was the head writer for the TV show Arthur. And so I had to audition for that job, which meant I watched about 100 Arthurs and then pitch ideas to them on episodes, and they liked some of them, and so I wrote my first episode, and that went well. And then I wrote a whole bunch of episodes for Arthur and Curious George, and then I got nominated for an Emmy with the staff of Arthur, and I was at the Emmys, and that's where I met Craig Gerber, because they were nominated for an Emmy for Sofia the First, and I met Craig and Lori and Rachel, who were the other writers on the show, and
Rachel's
Erica.
Awesome. We know her.
Yes, I adore Rachel, and so about a year later, I got a phone call from, a friend of mine from Arthur. Is this too much detail, or is this interesting?
No, we love this. Okay. We love our listeners will love this. They probably watched all that stuff. So go ahead.
Okay. So then a friend of mine who was on Arthur, was a writer for Arthur, he wound up getting, named Craig Carlisle, got a job on Sofia the First. Mm-hmm. And they lost somebody at the last minute. There was a writer who was supposed to do it, and they got something else. And so they called me up, and they were like, well, they remember you from the Emmys. They like you. Why don't you send some stuff? So it was all very last minute. So I sent them some stuff. We did an interview on like a Tuesday. I got the offer to do the job on Friday, and I was living in New York, and this was in LA. I flew out on Sunday and started working on Monday, and my wife stayed behind for 6 months, and then she came and joined me, and I've been living in LA and writing for Disney ever since. I wrote for the last season of Sofia the First, and then Goldie and Bear for a while, and now I'm on a new show, which is going to air in a month, called Fancy Nancy.
That's amazing. Wow.
So that's the story. And then...
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead. And then I have one more question to check on that, and then Becky, you can go. But I have one more thing. But go ahead.
But I just kind of fell into it. I mean, it wasn't the thing that I aimed at. It was just the thing that was fun for me. And, doing all the work that I did to become a writer who knew how to tell stories and character, and that was all important. But I guess that's just, to me, a lesson that, like, go in the direction of your joy in life in general. Like, that's where the success will come from. And I think there was a part of me that thought I should do something harder. Mm-hmm. In a way, writing came really easily, and cartoons were just something I really sort of enjoyed. But there was a part of me that was just like, that doesn't count. It's not real, but it's very real, and it's a real job, and it's super fun. It's really nice to have a lot of fun at work.
Oh yeah, no, I get what you're saying, and I'll be honest about something about Arthur. I watched it in my 20s. Because
many people do.
I actually remember really quickly, and then I have one other thing, and then Becky, you can go. I remember a whole summer when back, I think it was in 2003 or 4, where that was a summer that my dad helped me to furnish an apartment kind of down in our basement for me before I moved out, and it was really nice. It was really nice, and I would go upstairs, obviously eat dinner with him, because family means a lot to me. And things. But when he was at work in the summer, I would go down there and just write or play with we had 2 cats, 2 Himalayans, Simba and Tai. But I would go down there and hang out with them and watch TV. So there was a summer where I would tape every Arthur that was on. Now, I wouldn't like every single one. Obviously, there were just ones that weren't. And it wasn't like that. It was just, with anything. There's not everything. Yeah. But there were a lot that I loved. And there's one that I want to mention. I'm not sure if you wrote this, and then we'll go at the train. But the one where Sue Ellen's playing this game, and that's all she wants to do. And it's called Sue Ellen Gets Her Goose Cooked. I'm pretty sure it's what the episode title is.
I did not write that one, but tell me about it.
But it's one where they kind of spoof, I guess, on it. I haven't seen this in years. I feel bad, but they spoof on this game, and that's all she wants to play, and the kids get involved with it, to an extent. Mm-hmm. And then, but it's her who's really obsessed, and Arthur's you need to kind of cool it or whatever. And it's after she loses a tournament to this guy, not online per se, but someone else, I guess, who's playing it with her, that she realizes there's more important things. But there was a lot of really funny stuff in there, and I was just okay, this is cool.
Well, that makes me so happy that people enjoy it. We try to, with that show and with all the kids shows I write, we know that it's not just kids writing it, so we have to aim for where our audience is developmentally, but we also hope that there'll be something universal in it that will appeal and resonate with older people. And it's one of the things that I love about Arthur is that people of all ages really enjoy it. And
yeah, the last episode I saw was the one with Idina Menzel, where she plays a counselor after a storm hits. Becca turned me on.
Yes.
Idina Menzel.
She loves her. So So my other question before I hand the reins to Rebecca for a little while, when this is kind of going off what I said before, but hopefully I'm going to ask this right, and it's not going to come out sounding the way I don't want it to sound. But okay, so I'm just going to take a crack at this. So growing up, what was it like growing up with Carol? I'm sure you guys have a bond. That's not what I mean. I meant did you get into that stage where you kind of felt embarrassed and tried to, I'm not trying to say anything like that, but how kids,
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to paint. I know you're a good person.
No, it's okay. That's a good question. That's an excellent question. So for your listeners, one of the things that I shared with Lauren and Becca was that I have a sister who's developmentally disabled. So my sister Carol is 3 years older than me, and when she was born, there were some complications with her birth, and she had seizures, and so there was some brain damage, and so she's aphasic, which means that it's like when you have a stroke when you're older and you have to relearn how to talk, but that happened right when she was born. Okay. And so she always struggled with communication, and she's still here. And she struggles with communication, and she struggles controlling her feelings sometimes, and she does inappropriate things sometimes, especially when she was younger, and so I think that it is a challenge as a sibling of someone with a disability like that, because on one hand, I loved my sister, and I felt so much for my sister, and I did help her, and I wanted to help her. And another part, I was also a kid who was trying, and who was also kind of nerdy and wasn't particularly popular on his own, who was once I hit adolescence, and I was trying to, basically get girls to notice me, it was hard sometimes to have a sister who would do inappropriate things, and and then we would just fight over stuff. I mean, like brothers and sisters do.
Yeah.
And I think that what I hear you guys saying in our conversations and a little bit what we've talked about here is, but I also, how am I going to say this, that you don't necessarily, so what I try to do, my frustration, so let me take it back a step. So in all the things I do, I try to create characters who have disabilities and have them included. And that's in my plays as well as the kids' TV stuff that I'm doing. And I think it's really important. There's a tendency to do a very special episode about this disability, where the show is all kind of about the disability. And I think that when you're or I try to write comedies, and so somebody with a disability will often be the punchline to a joke, or they're this heroic, faultless person struggling against unbelievable odds and triumphing in the end. And my experience, because I actually grew up with someone like that, is I'm so inspired by her, and she drives me crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, she's a person, she's my sister, and what I want to show is characters who happen to be blind, who happen to have a disability like that. It doesn't define them.
No,
just it does influence who they are. You know, and it doesn't mean you ignore. And I love that you guys said that. Sure, like in Elena
with Christina.
There's Well, why don't you say for your listeners what you were telling me about how they deal with her and her wheelchair?
So pretty much, you first meet her in Navidad, which means it's Spanish for Christmas, and so she's Isa's best friend. And we don't know how they met. It's not really importante. It's not really important. But the point being, they met, they're friends, whatever. We know that. So that's all she wants for Navidad, is to spend Christmas, obviously with Elena, with her hermana, with her sister, and her familia. The rest of her familia, and also with Christina. So we first meet her, and she comes to the palace for Noche Buena, which is the night before Christmas. And so, sorry, I'm giving you a crash course Spanish lesson here, but
do it.
Awesome. So they're getting ready, they're gonna listen. Christina comes, and she has this present for Isa. So the first mention we have of her wheelchair, now if you could see it, but since I can't see, I didn't know that until Isa says, my present fits on your wheelchair tray. It will fit here, and she's like, it'll fit right there on your wheelchair. And she clips the art kit on her wheelchair, and so then nothing else is said of it. Nothing else. They help her. Elena spins her during a song, which is really sweet, but it's very safe. But there's nothing mentioned. So now we're going to go to another episode. Sorry, it's just because the bulk of the episode isn't about. It's about Christmas, which is good, but it's not what we're talking about. So then now we're going to go to Rise of the Sorceress. Now, Miel, I know you're excited about this. So I'm sorry, that's Spanish endearment for her. It means honey in Spanish. So in Rise of the Sorceress, they are performing a dance that they performed every year until, things happened. And so this is the first time that Elena and Isa are performing it without their mommy and papi, because they're dead. And Elena witnessed it, but anyway, we're getting out there. So anyway, obviously she's upset about that, that they're not going to be. So they're practicing, and Elena looks over and she sees Isa looking over at Christina like I want her to come. So Elena, being intuitive with her sister, because they're very close, and she's like, can you stop for a second? We need to talk. So Isa asks her to join the dance, and Christina's like, I would love to, but it's kind of hard to dance with wheels. And Isa and Elena's abuela, their grandmother, is like, well, we'll just have to change the dance for you. And it is so
beautiful.
Sweet. It's beautiful. So they do, but she still has problems. So when it comes time to do the actual dance in front of the kingdom, she starts to freak out a little bit. And Elena just goes up to her. She kneels down, which I love, because that's what you're supposed to do. And she kneels down, and she's like, you know what, Christina, I didn't get the steps right either the first time I did it, but my father is proud of me for trying, just like your father is proud of you now. Will you do it? And it's so sweet. So sweet. And because she could have gotten mad, because this happened like 5 other times, but she didn't. She just said. So
she was patient.
Yes.
What I hear and what you're saying is patience. Really doing enough research to know what's appropriate and what isn't in terms of how best to talk to them, but also including them and not putting them on some kind of pedestal or behind a glass wall, like wrapping them in bubble wrap.
And that's what we love about what they're doing. And there's going to be an episode, I think, later on where Christina actually, and I didn't tell you this, Miel, because I don't know if they already did this yet, but somebody was talking about an episode where they go on an adventure and she's with them.
Aww.
So it's going to be awesome to see that. But yeah, so stuff like that. So, I mean, sorry to stray into Elena territory, but yeah.
No, that's all right. No, that's great.
But yeah, so that's what we love about. We love Christina because she's an awesome character, but we love what they're doing because they're just focusing on her as a person.
Yeah.
And that's what we loved about Cassandra too. Yes, she happened to be blind, but she was right there with everyone else. I mean, she was the one that was leading them.
Right. Yeah, she was the expert. That was really important to us, that it wasn't kind of, what we were just talking about, but that she was somebody who was very accomplished in her field, and that, that the fact that she grew up reading Braille is what drew her to.
Yes.
It's one of the things that drew her to archaeomagicology, which is a made-up thing, but it was
it's fine.
But it was, this is the study of ancient magic artifacts, and so she's basically Indiana Jones kind of character. So she's really good at reading the hieroglyphs on the walls and things like ancient temples and pyramids, and then she's also really good at jumping, at getting through the booby traps and jumping over chasms, and that her being clued into her other senses is what helps her not get taken in by the booby traps. So we kind of were seeing it as a superpower, and I think that's a great way of looking at it, that there are, I think one of the things about growing up with a sister with a disability is seeing, I think people who don't have somebody who has a disability in their lives see only the negative, and they don't realize that there are all of these gifts that come from having a disability. So that's something I really try to celebrate, and I want to just overcome people just get afraid, I think. People who haven't been around somebody with a disability, they're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or they're scared it's catching in some way. And I think that it's so important, especially with kids' TV, to show people with disabilities, like you were saying, just on the adventure. And yes, maybe some accommodations need to be made a little differently, but they're also going to contribute in unique and awesome ways. And there's a soul and a human being there who's really valuable to have as a friend.
And throughout the whole episode, all I'm thinking is, Hildy, do not say anything stupid. Do not say anything stupid. I know you have a way of cutting.
Yeah, it was probably hard for Hildy. I
mean, I like her because she's growing, but at the same time, like, you cut people down without me, unintentionally, not knowing. And I was like, do not. And I figured, hey, if she does say something, Cassandra just get in her face and say something right back.
Yeah. And I love how Cassandra, when Zoe, I think it was, when she was like, oh, I didn't know that you were blind, and Cassandra just came right back with, well, I didn't know that you were sighted.
I love that line, and that actually came from Rachel Ruderman. We were when we were pitching the story at the beginning, she was the one who thought of that line, and I was just like, genius. So I ruthlessly stole it from her. But we do that. We all help each other write each other's. We all contribute to everything.
All right, Becca, go ahead. You
I do have a question about Cassandra.
Yes.
Did you guys figure out like what level of vision she would have, like if she could see light or shadows or?
That's a really good question.
Because there are many levels.
I will be honest. Yes, there are. I know that. Yeah, I think our idea was that no, she's completely blind. But talk to me a little bit about that, because it isn't something that I know a little bit about that, but I would love to hear more about that.
So pretty much, when they say completely blind, you think, not you personally, but everyone thinks, oh, it's in the dark. Now, sometimes that can be the case, but most of the time, what it is it's not. It's just. How do I explain this? It's kind of like white, but not. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's kind of, and you can't see anything, but there's like this like white kind of like sheen over your eye, kind of. I don't know if I'm even explaining that right, but it's just, so you're not seeing completely dark, but you're not seeing anything in front of you either. Then there is the people who have light perception, which means they can see if the sun's out, they can see obviously all types of light, but they just can't see anything else in front of them. And then you have people like me who can see light, who can see movement, but don't exactly know what it is that's moving, unless obviously I know Roger's back there moving, but I can hear his bell. But like I can basically, I know I'm saying from my computer screen, I can see shapes on it, but I can't tell you what they are. Now I know they're icons, but I mean I can't see to tell you what, like if it's Microsoft Word, if it's my folder, if it's whatever.
Right.
So yeah, and you know it's hard, but yeah, that's what, you know. And
there's so many different. Go ahead.
Sorry. No. Go ahead.
I see out of one eye. My right eye, I don't see anything. I don't have a lens or a retina in that eye, so I don't have any light perception or anything. It's not even dark, like or the white that we're talking about. It's just there.
It's just an absence.
Kind of like It's kind of like if my right eye was like my ear or something.
Right.
There, and then my left eye, I see pretty well. Well, I was last tested as 2300, and I know that doesn't mean much, but basically.
Oh, it means much. I have very thick glasses, actually. So I mean, without my glasses on, I can see about like a foot in front of my face. So So is that correctable? That 2300? Then, do you have glasses, or how does that work?
I used to. I had a cataract. I have retinopathy prematurity.
We both
ROP. We both do. And I had a cataract a year ago, and I had it removed, and I got you know how they do that. And so, but I had, because of the ROP, I had complications. And so for about a year, I was seeing the world through wax paper, basically. I recently had another surgery to clean out everything that from the complications, and so I see 2300 without glasses. But up until my cataract, I was seeing 2200 with glasses. And so
interesting.
And so I'm right now I'm trying to figure out like how to read, basically, because but
they can't give you glasses to increase, because you're not wearing glasses now, but you have 2300. They can't give you glasses that help increase that.
They won't really do much, I don't think, because I have an artificial lens.
I see. So they're already giving you the best lens they can.
And I'm gonna need reading glasses. But I have to wait until like everything is healed and But I do use a screen reader, even though I can see the computer. Like right now, I have my questions up for you up on my Microsoft Word, and I can read it without a screen reader.
Don't even think about it now.
Really huge.
No, I'm serious. Don't even think about it. Don't even try and do that.
Oh, I'm good. I have my questions memorized.
Okay.
But but I still use a cane because I don't. My depth perception is not all that great, and I can't get around in the dark.
I can. So I'm a lot like Cassandra in that the dark does not scare me.
Like I can in my house, but like outside, I have to do sighted guide. If I'm out, outside at night. And you know how in the song where it says when it's cloudy or dark?
Yeah.
Well, for me, a bright day is worse than a cloudy day.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. That's why I could connect with what she was saying. So.
Because the world just turns into this big ball of brightness, and everything disappears.
Gosh, that's such a beautiful. I mean, I definitely feel for you, and at the same time, that's such a beautiful metaphor. The world is a big ball of brightness.
Yeah.
Like that's I should say simile, metaphor. But it's just a beautiful image.
You know,
The
so
world is a
I
big
can,
ball of brightness.
yeah. So I
Now
can
we're gonna listen
see.
and see if that comes up in any of your shows. No, I'm joking.
I steal from everybody.
No,
I steal
it's
from
okay.
everybody.
It's okay. You're good. Your voice reminds me of someone just as you're talking now, and I just can't put my finger on it, and it's driving me crazy. It's a character in a show, actually.
Interesting. Maybe it's me. Who knows? My roommate, and when I was an actor in New York, my roommate for a long time was another guy named Matt, and he had, I forget the name of it now, but it was a genetic condition that several people in his family had, where he was losing the vision in the center of his eye. So his peripheral vision was okay, but the center he was losing.
Right.
And because of that, reading was hard for him. And so he became incredibly good at memorizing, because he would go in to audition and he would get there a little early, because you could, a lot of times when you audition, you have to hold the pages up, and he would just, boom, he would look at it and get it. And that was, he was incredible. And he did, and continues to act to this day.
That's me with the memory thing. I can do that. Like, I did that for an audition when I went for summer theater when I was a teenager. And my dad took both me and a friend of mine to the audition, and she went there, did her thing. She was good. I didn't, I'm not perfect, but at the same time, I was like, okay, that's cool. I went in there and I did not a monologue, but a scene from one of my favorite TV shows back at the time, Secret Road of Alex Mack. And I still like it, but that's the point. But anyway, I did that, and they gave it to me because they explained I had obviously not like that, but then they said I had talent. Not like that's not horrible, but you know what I mean. It wasn't just that; it was the fact that I went in there.
Don't admit that you have talent. Never say that.
That's not
how dare you acknowledge yourself for having talent.
Oh my gosh, I like you. You were awesome. So anyway, it was that, but it was also the fact that she had to start like 2 times because she kept losing her place. But I went in there, I memorized the whole thing, went in there and just closed my eyes and imagined what I saw on the screen, but I imagined what would if I was in that place. So I was like, okay, this is what I should do. Think of it. And they liked that. They liked that I put myself in that position and wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. So, and when I say I'm not afraid of the dark, I want to clarify something. I'm not afraid of being in the dark. What I am afraid of, however, is losing like the minimal vision that I have and being in the dark forever. Like that's what I'm afraid of. Not being in the dark at night.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just didn't want you to think I went to. So before we go on,
that's so helpful to hear this.
You wanted me to tell you a little story, didn't you? When I said that I made a backstory for Cassandra, and you're like, I want to hear this.
Although
okay.
I must do a disclaimer that if Cassandra winds up getting her own series, I did not hear anything that you said.
We want her to. We want her to. Oh my gosh, we want her to.
Okay, then you're saying you're giving me permission to steal this. Let's just have that.
Yes, I am. Yes,
all right.
Yes, every single thing.
I owe you nothing.
Yeah,
I owe you nothing.
No,
okay,
nothing.
Let's go.
Nothing. Okay, so we will be honest and truthful from the very beginning and say that you know what fanfic is, right? Like stories where people write things.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so we are big on Elena fanfic. Now, Craig knows this. He's not naive. He gets it. It's cool. As long as it's appropriately done, I'm sure he's fine. Whatever. He knows. So anyway, we have her in one of our Elena fics because we have Elena losing her vision a little bit after an accident. An actual accident. Something that could happen. So she comes to help her, and Elena, I'll be really quick with this. Actually, kind of funny. Not that at all. Something else. So Elena gets kidnapped by the person who killed her parents because she wants something from her, and she has these 2 henchmen who are idiots. Okay, let's put it that way for the PG podcast. They are idiots, and so Cassandra's coming to visit her, but they capture her because of what she can do. She can read the glyphs, and they're in the catacombs. So Elena realizes that after coming to, and she's like, please tell me you didn't tell them anything. And Cassandra's like, oh, I told them something, but it was not going to help them because I read that he's a moron, and I read it to him backwards.
I love it.
And I'm not trying to make her, I'm not trying to go a character, but she's like 15. She's going to be saying things like that about people who, and Victor, you can call him that without feeling bad, because he's a wuss. She tells a story about a ghost, but the first part of it's very true. The second part's a big lie. And because he can't tell that she's lying, he believes it and runs out of the cave. And Elena's like, is that true? And she's like, most of it. The last part of it's fake. I had to make him believe it. So anyway, I'm sorry. So the backstory that we have, so I'll put myself out there. This backstory is completely my own idea for the most part. Becca did chime in, but I pretty much spun this thing. So, and I have
Becca, she just threw you under the bus.
Yeah, really. But no. So. And I came up with this while we were working on it. I just did it. I just had Cassandra tell Elena about what her life was like and all that stuff. So so basically what I had happen was, in order to do this right, she's been blind since birth, right? It wasn't an accident. It wasn't anything. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So So basically what I had her tell Elena was that, she was born and stuff, and obviously, and they knew that she was going to be blind. So then, about a couple years later, like say she's like 4 or 5, all that, 6 maybe, probably no, 5 to 7, and her father walks out because he can't handle it. So he leaves her mother to raise her and her sister. I gave her an older sister by like 4 years, named Abby, and so
I'm sorry. What's the older sister's name?
Abby.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so then this their mother, I haven't actually named her yet, but she has to raise these girls on her own and hold down a job, do all that. So Abby had to step up to not take care of Cassandra in a way, but just kind of like do the things that kind of watch her a little bit more than when their mother was there, and not in that way. I just mean like taking over a little bit for their mom while she was at work. So then when Cassandra, I had her, I think, at 13 when this happens. So then the unthinkable happens and their mother is killed. So this is what she and I were like close, but not like Elena and Isa, but they were they were close. So this kind of brings them closer. And she's 8, Abby's 18 at this point, so she has to like step up and do this, or 17. So it's kind of like, so now like she explains to Elena that because Elena was saying that I left and my guard knew where I was, but my mama does not. And she's like, I told you this not to scare you, but to make you understand anything can happen. That this was in our story that we had her mother be alive but not her dad. And she was like, you never know what can happen. You need to rectify that when you get home, and we will get home if it's the last thing I do, because that guy is getting on my nerves. So that's what I did.
I love that. You know what I love about that story is, and so then Cassandra, so let's just take it to the next step then. So then Cassandra's mother has died, her father's gone, her 18-year-old sister is taking over. So what does that mean for her? Like, how does she get from there to being the adventurer that we come to see her, would you say?
She pretty much, like, obviously she's angry. That's normal. She grieves. That you do that in different ways, but I think, and then obviously when you're never done grieving, but at the same time when she reaches a point where she's like, I obviously always miss her, I know she'll always love me, what have you. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just trying to get to there. But I can use this, I can channel it to help me to not let this stop me, to help me to get to the next level where she knew that I was gonna go. I'll let her help me do that, even though she's not here.
I love that. That's beautiful. And this is one of the many gifts, as I was talking about, of someone with a disability. Having a disability is what I hear in that story that you just told. I love the theme of anything can happen at any time.
Yeah.
And that, if you've grown up and things have just always kind of gone right for you, that's wonderful. But does it really challenge you to grow as a person.
No, it doesn't.
No.
And you guys have dealt with, you're so young, and you've had to deal with really challenging things from a very early age. And you kind of had two choices. One was give up and the other was to grow, right?
Yeah.
And so you are unafraid of telling stories with real tragedy in them, with real obstacles. You're not telling stories about dating and things like that. Not that dating isn't great. You should tell stories about that too. But I taught a lot. I taught writing a lot, both to adults and to kids. And I think that the challenge for some people is really going there, because as human beings, we move away from conflict. We move away from pain. That's healthy. You don't want to do that. But as a dramatist, as somebody telling stories, you have to go into pain. You have to go into obstacles. You have to go into challenges.
Oh yeah.
And what I loved about that story is how much you're giving Cassandra real challenges, real problems, and that to me, clearly, a story like that would clearly create the brave adventurer that we see in the episode that I wrote. So beautiful work, and I think it's a testament both to your talent and to who you guys are as people that you came up with that story.
Thanks. Now I had a question about Sally, though. Two things. They kind of go hand in hand. First of all, awesome job in not giving her a dog. Now, the dogs aren't cool, but I loved the lemur. I mean, Sally. Sorry, Sally.
I think everybody should have a seeing eye lemur, whether they're blind or whether they're visually impaired or not. I would like a seeing eye lemur.
So, this is the question I had. Actually, there's actually two in one. I'm sorry. So, how did Cassandra train her? Was she conditioning her with food? Obviously, was it with toys? Was it with the Target thing? How did she do that?
That is a really good question that I will be honest, I have not figured out. But I think that would make another great story for your fan fiction of that would be a great when the three of us are working on the Princess Cassandra series for Disney.
Yes.
That will be one of our episodes, which is the training of Sally.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll call it Sally Fourth. And it will be about all the ways in which she tries to train her and it doesn't work, and then she figures out the way that actually works.
Yes.
Because Sally is a very unique and a very persnickety kind of lemur. And doesn't, she's very finicky, so we have to find just the right treats that are going to lure her to do
she
her
sounded
job.
adorable. The other thing that we appreciated was that none of the kids touched her or asked to touch her. That was
that's important.
Yes.
If there is a dog with a harness, I'll pet that dog.
He's doing a job. Yeah, he's not a cuddle. He's not there for cuddling. Yeah.
Exactly, and I loved how they just were okay, and they didn't try to pet her. They didn't. Another thing is talking to them. Because that distracts them too. And I loved that Sally was just there, and they were just okay.
Yeah, and I mean, asking wouldn't have been a big deal. I mean, that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. But at the same time, the fact that they kind of, I guess, had an idea when she said that was just okay, case closed. Here we go.
Yeah.
Also, I think part of what's going on there is Cassandra is the authority.
Yes.
She's in charge. She's the parent in the room. So and I think that they were just kind of. I mean, she shows up riding a hippogriff or whatever. I can't remember now, but it's like a flying lion with wings. So it's
we didn't know that. We didn't know that.
Yes.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So she's she kicks butt,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and there's definitely, when we write our series, there's an episode where she tames that creature, yes. So, right, that was the idea, is that we're using things that are real from what someone who lives in, I don't know where you guys live. Where do you guys live?
Pennsylvania.
Or you're not supposed to say. Never mind. Pennsylvania. Okay.
Yeah. I live in Georgia.
Oh, wow. Okay. But, or someone in Pennsylvania or Georgia, the kind of things they might be doing, but then taking it into a fantastical dimension, So.
And I loved that she wrote books because I'm an author.
Me too.
I can tell.
I'm actually working on a science fiction novel where I do have a character that is visually impaired like myself.
Fantastic.
And I also loved that she wrote books.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, was that she was really accomplished, she was, again, this idea that she's the authority, she's the expert, she's somebody who's already there. She's already proven herself. She's already done someone they all can look up to. Not just because isn't she brave, but no, she did stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we have her come to help Elena, because when when Shariki captured her and she wakes up and she obviously can't see because of what happened, she's freaking out a little bit because obviously she has no idea where she is, but she's scared, so she's not paying attention to what am I hearing, thing. So Cassandra kind of gets her grounded enough to explain, okay, I don't know why they have, well, not like that, but she doesn't know her yet, but she's like, I need you to listen to my voice, listen to, and then when she gets her to a point where she can pay attention,
I love that.
She's like, okay, what are you smelling? What are you hearing besides me and besides that idiot over there?
Yeah.
And all that.
Well, that's really funny, but what's also great, what's great about what you're doing character-wise, that's a great character trait for Cassandra that, again, like we were saying, because she's gone through so much, she is someone who, in particular crisis related to sight, she's steady, but my guess is she's pretty steady most of the time. Things don't ruffle her because she's been through stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure she has her vulnerable times. Everyone does, and I'm sure there are things
exactly. And that would be very interesting to explore. Princess Can's? That's our mid-season cliffhanger double episode.
We should really do. But no, I'm being serious. We should find a way that we could really do this with you, because that would be incredible.
That would be amazing.
Well, I would love to do something like that. But right now, I need to go to the halls of Disney and work on Fancy Nancy. So I think I have to end this interview now, unless there's a last question that you guys
go ahead, Becca.
might have.
You can.
Yeah, I have one. What inspired you to make Cassandra blind?
Well, I will. When I got the offer to write for Princess Sophia, I have to say, I had a moment where I was like, I'm not sure. I'm a middle-aged, bald, white guy. I was like, I'm not sure that a show for girls is something that I am going to be able to do. Of course, it turned out that I am basically a little girl inside, so it was all fine. But at the time, I was like, I'm not sure this is, for me. So I watched a few episodes, and I really resonated with the episode about the Flying Derby, where Sophia is, she shows up at Royal Prep, and she wants to ride in the Flying Derby, which is riding on the flying horses, and only the princes do. The princesses watch from the stands,
right?
And she's like, "No, I'm going to be on the horse." And what I loved about that was it also really, to me, resonated with the title, Sofia the First. She's the first. She changes things.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, what are the kind of change that I would like to see? And as I said, because I grew up with a disabled sister, my sister loves television. She loves shows. And she loves when she sees somebody with a disability like hers in a show. And it's sometimes hard for her to articulate because of her issues. But I can remember there was a show when we were younger called Life Goes On, where it was about a boy with a developmental disability, and he was down. I think he had Downs, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
And it was the actor actually had Downs, and it was a wonderful show. And I remember I was staying. My sister had her own apartment at that time where she was monitored and stuff, and I was staying over, and I had gone and gotten some food or something, and I came in, and she was sitting and watching that show, and in the dark, like she was just sitting there watching it, and was so engrossed in the show, like in a way that I'd never seen before, and I could tell that this was like food for her, that this was so important for her to see someone like her on a show that she loved. And so I had actually read that there was, Disney is doing great with their inclusion of princesses in terms of ethnic diversity, but there hadn't been a disabled princess, and that there were people asking for that. And I thought, well, that's going to be my goal on this show. Is like I don't want to get through this. I knew I was there for the last season, so one season, and I was like, I really want to get a princess with a disability on the show. And it wasn't easy, to be honest, because we had to find just the right story. And I pitched a lot of different stories before this one was approved and came through. And there was, but once and it was interesting because I shared this with Lauren in an email. One of the very first episodes they asked me to write was an episode about the princesses getting trapped in a pyramid in Khaldoon, which is sort of they wanted a kind of Indiana Jones adventure show, and we couldn't figure that out, and I couldn't figure out how to do a disabled princess show that wasn't going to be, like one idea was, one of the princesses falls and hurts her leg and she's in a cast, and then she meets another princess who is in a wheelchair and she blah blah blah, but that just didn't feel right, and so I don't know exactly. I can't honestly remember the moment where it sort of hit me, but I was like struggling with these two stories, and then I realized they answered each other. So once I got this idea of like, they get trapped in the dark in the pyramid. Well, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a princess who was used to not being able to see, who could help them? And then everything just boom came together, and then it got through very easily. And we actually didn't have a lot of notes from the executives. They just everybody really liked it, and they really got behind it, and they really believed in it. And as I said offline, I sent your comments, and you guys weren't the only ones. There were other people who contacted me on Twitter and just saying that they were also blind viewers or visually impaired viewers who the episode really resonated with. And I sent that to the head of Disney Junior and some of the other people in charge at Disney, and they were so touched and so happy, and they all said, this is why we do this. This is why we do this. So, and I know that it has encouraged other shows to put disabled characters in their shows. I'm not the only one advocating for this at Disney at all. Craig Gerber, I have to say that Craig Gerber was independent of my desire to do this. He was also hoping to have a disabled princess on the show. And it was actually total coincidence. We weren't talking about it, but he was working on his end and I was working from my end, and then it all came together. And then I also need to say that Michael Stern, who is the story editor, which means he was the head writer for the season that I was on, wrote the song that you guys love so much. I had normally we write the songs for the episodes we're in, but my contract ended. This was the last episode, the final episode I wrote, and there wasn't time to finish the song before my contract ended. And so I came up with the idea of the song, and I think maybe the title, but the basic idea of it. But Michael wrote it and did a beautiful job with it. Really, it was all meant to be, because I just think he did a beautiful job with that song. And so I want to, and I think Craig weighed in a little bit on the song as well. So as he does, being the king of the show.
Yes. But
our King Roland. Yes.
We want to thank you. We want to thank you so much for coming and being a part of our podcast and gifting us with your time.
Yes.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Becca. I interrupted you too.
Thank you so much. This meant a lot.
Yes.
Well, it means a lot to me, guys, and I hope we stay in contact. And I think what you're doing, is just terrific. I love your podcast. I think you're both delightful, and I want you both to keep writing, and I look forward to reading your stories and seeing the TV shows that you guys create, because I really see that for you. Okay?
Oh, thank you so much. You have a really good week.
Okay, thanks. Okay, you too.
Okay.
Right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.